Sea creatures, welcome back to the SportsMax Zone. And I said that in reaction to something Mariah said off air, all right? The Jamaican Football Federation, JFF, is facing fresh criticism over its handling of logistical arrangements for the senior Reggae Boyz. This after 8 of 10 Europe-based Reggae Boyz were turned back by their airline in Amsterdam as they attempted to reach Japan for an international friendly on Thursday. The game was called off. The players were denied the chance to board the flight as their negative COVID test certificates were rejected by the airline. It's understood that based on requirements put in place by the Japanese government, the players needed to have undergone PCR tests where the sample had been taken from the nostril. The players reportedly did do PCR tests, but the sample was reportedly taken from the mouth. Now, a 10-strong contingent of Reggae Boyz who were traveling to Japan from the United States were able to travel after taking the prescribed PCR tests. So this one is a black eye for the JFF based on what we know, although there has been some information late this afternoon to suggest that the Japanese Football Association, the JFA, has taken some responsibility for not making the JFF aware that the PCR test had to be specific and the result had to be produced from a swab of the nostril and not the mouth, effectively taking responsibility for the follow-up. But all in all, it still doesn't look good.
It doesn't look good at all, and to be honest, I'm not really surprised based on the, for the amount of time that I've been following these stories, it really didn't surprise me. What I will say though, it defeats the purpose of having a friendly match, because I know the Jamaica team would actually, the purpose of this is to allow the local-based Jamaican footballers to actually intermingle, get that practice in with the foreign-based players, because we noticed that when they played the couple of times that I looked at them, they looked out of sorts, because remember, they're not training together, they're not playing together. So I feel like George and Lance, it defeats that purpose. And then financially, the JFF, they don't have money to be wasting right now. Like, that's the least of the thing that they want to do. And the fact that the players, I think they had to go back to get the test and sort that out, that's just double the cost and money that they actually don't have to be wasting and spending during this pandemic. So for me, that's already 2 strikes, and I probably could sit down and come up with a couple more disadvantages for what just happened.
Yeah, it's hard for the JFF to avoid heavy criticism on this one, even though the Japan Football Association has put their hand up to say they take responsibility for not giving the information to the JFF about the specifics of the PCR test. But the Jamaica Football Federation has been embroiled for years in, criticism about inefficiency and a lack of professionalism in how they operate. And I would suggest that, if you're going to reverse that trend or reverse that impression that people have of you, then you're going to leave no stone unturned to ensure that you do the right things all the time. And it begs the question for me that you're traveling, COVID-19 is a major issue at ports, retesting and quarantine and so on. I just think that they should have, dotted all their I's and crossed all their T's to ensure that everything would be okay. Because as you said, Mariah, this is a serious setback for the Reggae Boyz.
Right.
Most of the countries in the Caribbean at the moment and in CONCACAF are playing World Cup qualifying. The Jamaicans don't enter World Cup qualifying until September. So the team is pretty much inactive. The seasons in Europe and so on just ending. This now was an opportunity to get a lot of the new players together and getting as much match practice to develop chemistry as possible. And the fact that, it has turned out in the way that it has is a major embarrassment for the JFF. I don't think there is any way else that it could be interpreted.
And George and Lance, this is no rocket science. You're traveling. Wouldn't you just Google or do some research where you're going, what type of tests you have to do?
But I wouldn't Google it, no, because if I Google it, I'm opening myself up to the kind of mishap. Yeah,
okay, but
that happened today. So, but I'm just raising you, Mariah. I'm giving you something better, because I see what you're angling at. So I'm going above that to say that I can understand and accept you saying Google. What I would do were I on the JFF end coordinating, I'd write my Japanese counterpart, please send in writing exactly what we are to do
What
where
required.
COVID tests are concerned, because we know, everybody knows, that there are different kinds of PCR tests. There are also different kinds of COVID tests. So this is the range of COVID tests. This is the breakout of PCR tests. Please identify, indicate which one is required so that our players and our representatives or ambassadors have no problem at ports of entry to come into your country. Please send that back by fax so that I can have a hard copy, and please also send a soft copy so I can refer to. And I would have avoided this. And I'm saying that this is elementary in this regard. It shouldn't have happened, really. It shouldn't have happened. And the Japanese officials are saying, well, we didn't tell you. But I still believe that the JFF should have asked. Let the JFF say, well, you know what? We asked, we were told X, and when our players turned up, then they said Y. That's what I'm saying.
Basically, cover your bases.
And that's not what happened.
And that's not what happened. So the JFF should have been in a position to say, look, we asked, you told us what to do, we did that, and now you're telling the players that they can't come.
And now give me back the money that I
You've changed back the
wasted.
thing. Well, I'm sure if the Japanese are fair people, if they've held their hand up the FA to say, well, yeah, we had a part to play in the bungling of this thing, then it wouldn't be unreasonable to expect that there'd be some reimbursement of any monies the JFF would have spent for players who didn't actually get to land in Japan.
When I think about the JFF too, it's not like me that it's a one-man team. You have assistants and all these different people that you're paying to do this job. So writing a letter or sending an email shouldn't be that difficult, right?
At all.
All right, so on that note, let's head across to see what's taking place in the Olympics in today's Olympic Corner.
Olympics are uncertain whether they will be tested, let alone vaccinated against the coronavirus. A majority of Japanese want the games to be postponed again or cancelled amid surging coronavirus cases and a slow start into vaccination. The Tokyo 2020 Olympics were postponed last year due to the coronavirus pandemic and are due to start on July 23 of this year. That's it for today's Olympic Corner. Remember to watch the SportsMax Zone for your daily Olympic updates.